All right, we are live. Let's get this thing rolling. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We are live with the Ignite That Light podcast, episode 1. Let's throw a banner up here and get this thing rolling. We have my first guest ever, the Mental Reboot. Welcome aboard.
Hello. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate being your inaugural guest here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here for sure, man. Appreciate you stopping on in and being a part of this. It's a big deal. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and have the opportunity to welcome you on and to really really connect here. You know, the goal of this podcast, right? This Ignite That Light podcast, which I think a lot of people already are aware of, but in case they aren't, it's really to connect, inspire, and help motivate others in the best way possible, right? I think there's a lot of toxicity out there in social media, and hopefully this is a way that people can just better connect and to understand and hopefully see that there is something positive out there in the world, and this is our opportunity to share that. And as you can see, episode 1's theme topic is the power of positive habits, and you and I have connected in our brief time knowing each other on X, and I could tell immediately that your substance of your comments, right, the substance of what you say, it's more in depth, it's more detailed than the typical response. So it's my honor to have you on here first, to really have you share a little bit more about yourself, kind of what got you onto the platform where we met, and kind of tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think that this podcast is an awesome concept because like you said, there's so much negativity in this world. We're basically just bombarded with dopamine hits, but is that true happiness? Oftentimes it's really not. And sometimes you really just need to step back and be truly positive. And kind of like you said, when I respond to a lot of posts on X, pretty much anywhere, I like to really be thoughtful when I respond, not just, oh, I'm just going to respond to respond. I think it's super important to be genuine, and then also have a good message behind what you're being genuine about.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. That's I think that's part of the reason why we connect so well, is I think that it's all about, I think, you're adding value. Ultimately, what you're saying, right? You're saying, add value as much as you can when you're delivering some sort of a message to other people, and I think I that resonates with me, is what I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so go ahead.
No, it's key, and especially here on X specifically, kind of where we met. It seems like they're rewarding more and more when you're just being yourself, in terms of, follow for follow. I mean, they're actually saying now, like, you shouldn't be doing that stuff, especially when it was a lot of like paid, reposts, whatever. So it's pretty cool that we get to talk this way on a platform like X.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I was kind of curious, I think you and I have talked about this already, but for those who don't know kind of how you, how you got onto the platform, right? I think you mentioned that you had previously been on, but really maybe didn't think too much of it. I mean, can you kind of walk through kind of how we first met, basically, how you kind of got attracted to the platform, and then, and kind of what brought you there?
Yeah, I've been on X, formerly Twitter, I don't know, for maybe at least 10 years. But for the majority of that time, is just, random scrolling once in a while, most of the time just checking to see what's trending, to see what wild things going on in the world. And then kind of when I saw Elon was looking at buying it, and I'm like, what's that about? And then he ended up actually buying it. I was like, interesting. He's doing some kind of odd things, but interesting things in the world. So my eyes are open. And then really starting to see how people were using it. I'm like, you know what? I have this thing that I've kind of had in the back of my head that I really wanted to kind of be a part of. And I'm like, you know what? This might be the time. And I think X is the place to do it.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, this is the optimal time to be on this platform. I think most people they think about it, and like what you said, I think the old way of thinking of it has changed. It's transformed in a major way, right? I think a lot of people are. I'm seeing a lot of people on my timeline thankful that they're even seeing that they're monetized. There are a lot of people that are, aspiring to deliver content to the world that actually is more than just, for better or for worse, vitriol, right? I think a lot of people, get sometimes that's what actually gets propped up in a lot of ways, and to see, a platform sort of look at things differently, right? I mean, yeah, that does spark engagement, but there are other ways to do that, and we don't always have to default to that type of interaction. So yeah, I mean, again, like the theme of this really, again, the power of positive habits. Again, it's connect, inspire, motivate, right? That's what the whole thought process behind even the inspiration behind this podcast. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate your backstory, obviously, and kind of I think again, you and I see things very similarly, I would say. But yeah, getting into the topic, about positive habits, I just wanted to ask you, like, about morning routines. I think that's something that's Tim Ferriss has talked about it in his podcast, and a lot of others have since then, right? That's what I first heard of, or the idea that there's actually a process that people think through and go through step by step. I lived my life for decades with not really thinking about that, right? And like not really being deliberate about it. And I'm kind of curious as to your perspective on that, right? Like, what's your morning routine? Is there a certain deliberate process that you follow? Is there something that you go through in the morning that sort of gets you going, right?
Yeah. So I kind of have an interesting perspective on morning routines.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have a lot of people in X who are like, oh, you got to do this after this, after this. You got to make your bed. You got to have your coffee, whatever. And for a lot of people, yeah, that's 100% true. And even with myself, kind of, let's just go with my routine here for instance. I'm kind of actually dialing in on it specifically right now. So what I'm doing is, like, right when I wake up, I'm basically trying now to get out of bed immediately.
Mm-hmm.
For years and years, I would just, sit there, either not want to get up, be dead when I wake up. What I'm doing now, it's like, all right, I'm going to get up. I'm just going to jump right into the day. I actually fast, intermittent fasting. So basically the first thing I'm going to do, I basically drink water, just refresh the system. If I want something with any kind of flavor, I'll go right to sparkling water, maybe some green tea.
Okay.
And then about 2 hours after I wake up, I'll take this almost pure natural caffeine supplement capsule.
Okay.
Because they say it's important to not have your caffeine like the minute you wake up.
I heard that too. Yeah.
I can't remember what the chemical's called in your brain, but basically when you wake up, you need it to deplete, because if you do your caffeine right away, it'll actually suppress that substance from depleting.
Absolutely.
So basically, once your caffeine starts to wear off, now it's going to start trying to deplete that substance, which makes you drowsy.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that actually alone is just a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of caffeine I do isn't a lot. I mean, 100 milligrams, I think a cold brew, it's like 200 milligrams, and some people do multiple of those a day.
Yeah, that's less for sure. Yeah.
But that just keeps me going the whole day. Just that simple. If you want to go by routine, just get up, hydrate, wait a bit, caffeine, and then I just go.
Then you go. Yeah, I love that. I heard that same thing, that concept that if you do your coffee within the first hour of waking up, it does sort of blunt the effectiveness, right? Or of that chemical compound or the hormone, right, in the system that you're describing. Yeah, it's sort of, sort of short circuits something, or it short changes the effect or the impact, right? So going through like a waiting period when you wake up, drink that water, wait a little bit before you caffeinate, I think is it's really smart. I think there's science behind that, so it's a logical process. Yeah, no, I think yeah, caffeine, just get a little bit, kind of get you going, and move on from there. That's for me. I think it's I try to wait. I try to do 2 glasses of water right when I get out of bed. Right, it's kind of the same thing, and
Yeah.
then try not to do the coffee first, but or sometimes with family priorities and the kids and the wife, I think it just sort of you have to kind of get something other than water. So sometimes I'll just make the coffee, and I might just have to rush into it, but more often than not, the water comes first. But that's so important. And yeah, I mean, I think like getting yourself kind of off to a positive start, right? Get yourself going. If you master that, I think, morning routine, like what you said, I think the rest of the day you're giving yourself your best possible, I guess, way of getting through the day. I think, right? Because imagine if your morning didn't go that way, or something interfered with that way of going about your morning, you may feel like you're thrown off a bit, right? You might feel like you actually have some sort of you have to kind of make up for that, and I've been guilty of that too. So I get that, and yeah, I love that idea as well. For me, like, yeah, I'm thinking about like what else, right? In terms of some good habits, right? Like going on, kind of segueing into the next part of this podcast, right? Like, what are some good habits in your life? Like, thinking more broadly, right? Like, what are some positive habits, some good habits that you have that you formed in your life, right? That, like, over time. I know for me, just speaking from experience, for the longest time, it was a struggle for me to get to the gym, right? To force myself to go to the gym, to go work out. And so what I did, I eventually found out about this workout group, this men's workout group here locally, and they work out at 5:30 in the morning. And so it's a bit of a struggle for a lot of people, but let me tell you something. You get your workout, you get your shoes by the side of the bed, you get your workout clothes somewhere within reach of your bedside table, and you go to bed at a reasonable time. And let me tell you, you can make those workouts. You can make that happen. It's about, I think, to me, removing friction from whatever I'm trying to get accomplished. And so, kind of curious about you. What are some good habits that you formed, and like how have you gone about forming them?
Yeah, and real quick, kind of what you were talking about with the friction, that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. In like most aspects of life, if it's something that you need to do,
Yeah.
but your body's like, I just don't want to do it, framing is huge. And when you can remove that unnecessary friction to do the things that you want to do or need to
Yeah.
do, you can turn the things that you need to do into things that you want to do. You basically just need to really make that connection. Obviously, I go into more of the subconscious stuff, but it's literally trying to connect, what deep down,
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, that's either wrong, like, hey, deep down, my body's like, I just don't want to do this. But consciously, you're like, I know I need to do this. You need to make that connection between both parts of, the complex of your brain. And, by framing, you can remove that friction. So that's already like, awesome.
Yeah.
But for myself, I already mentioned one. So I think
Yeah.
it's been maybe 6+ months now that I've really been getting into fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, I'm no health professional. So in terms of fasting, you have to be very careful with your body type, especially between males and females. Fasting is like drastically different.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good woman on YouTube who really specializes in fasting for women. I can't think of her name. But honestly, if you just, for the women out there, if you look up fasting for women, I guarantee you're going to find her content.
Okay.
But it's honestly a game changer. Hey, I love food that tastes good, but really just like limiting myself to an eating window of about 7 hours.
Yeah.
It completely changed the game in terms of like how your mind feels. Like my whole body feels healthier when I do it.
That's true.
So yeah, any comments on that one? I don't know if you've
Yeah.
experimented with it.
For sure. I've actually tried the fasting thing, and I find the intermittent fasting thing, and I find that to be, I feel at my absolute healthiest when I do that. To be honest, I feel like there's this kind of period of time whenever I do it where I start to wonder, am I actually hungry? Like, what is that feeling, right? That feeling, because I think a lot of us don't really understand the feeling of true hunger because we're just bombarded with food options everywhere, right? We're there's fast food on every corner. We have snacks piled up in the house. I mean, well, speak for myself, right? But the the thing is, food's everywhere, right? And it's hard to reduce that temptation, for longer than a few hours at a time. We're just not. I think for me, I'm not accustomed to that. So when I've done this fasting, what I've done is I've just drank black coffee, right? That's kind of and water. Like that's been basically all I will consume until my lunchtime, right? So really, it's kind of like probably the easiest way to get through that is sleep most of that time, right? And basically just don't eat breakfast, and that's worked for me in the past. I feel like I feel like I'm super healthy. Like when I do it, I feel like, do I even want to break this fast at this point? Once you get to a certain level, my brain kind of feels like you can probably go farther than this if you want to. But in terms of practicality, with the expectations, I think the kids and the wife would probably be a little concerned with my well-being if I didn't eat something, and I probably wouldn't set a good example. But I think, when I've done the intermittent fasting piece of it, right? I mean, I've gone to the 16 hours of not eating. It sure feels like it works. Like there's something about it where, you start to feel like a little bit of the hunger pang, but it's like a mind over matter thing in a lot of ways. And if I'm sipping my water, I'm sipping my coffee, even at 2:30 in the afternoon, before I even actually dip into any kind of like late lunch type of thing, I feel really good actually. So I've done that, and it's this is not a medical advice. We're not doctors here on this podcast, so don't take this as medical advice, but it's definitely I feel at my healthiest when I do the intermittent fasting.
Yeah. I mean, and I would definitely say, bring it up to your doctor and be like, hey, is this even possible for me? Because if it is, and it actually is very possible for a lot of people, mainly because there's so many different schedules. Like some people, they'll eat normal for like the whole week, but let's say Tuesday and Thursday, the entire day they fast. So it's like, there's so many different schedules where you get to take advantage of that. You're basically giving your body a reset because, like you said, we're bombarded with food everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't really take advantage of like the whole other way that our body kind of creates energy. And it's like we can use our stored fat as fuel, but because we're always eating and we're always in a somewhat state of digestion other than our sleeping, window, which is why it's called, breakfast, because you're breaking your fast.
Yeah.
We don't get to tap into basically this whole other power our body has, which is, hey, we could stop digesting and focus on all this other stuff while using fat as fuel. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and again, I that's a great point. Talk to your doctor about it and see if that's possible. I know that I've looked at that. I've also looked at the keto diet, which might be a bad word. It might be a 4-letter word to some people, like literally, not just literally, but figuratively. Also, like it can be a something that causes people great consternation whenever they hear that word. But I've tried it. Then I went to the doctor for a physical, and she said you should stop that because your cholesterol is a little bit high. Again, not surprising. I mean, what the food that you can eat on that diet is pretty significant, and in terms of cholesterol content. But it's not for everyone. We're not doctors here. Talk to your doctor if that's something that you're looking into. I've tried it. It's again, I enjoyed that a lot. Actually, not gonna lie. That's the doctor said if you want to live a long and healthy life, you probably want to stop that. So I had to refrain from going too deep into that. Have you tried that at all?
I have, and I've kind of changed up the way I do it, and it's not keto anymore. I kind of went with it when I started my fasting because it's like, okay, when I refuel, maybe let's try keto to refuel.
Yeah.
But now in terms of like carbs, I don't have any like white/enriched grain products. So when I'm going to choose carbs, I'm going to choose, like maybe potatoes or whole grain, bread, rice that is not like fully processed, like, it doesn't have everything taken off it.
Yeah.
Corn that isn't, super enriched or processed where it's like pure just corn. So yeah, not keto, but closer to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a yeah, it's an approximation or like a type of it, I guess I would say, like maybe like a variation on it, right? And I think that yeah, I mean, this is something I could talk about for days because it's something that again, I'm very food motivated. People that have seen me on X
Yeah.
on Twitter and know that I post a lot about food. Especially, I saw this post a friend of mine. He's posted a box of frosted flakes that pumpkin spice flavor, and I don't know if you've seen that, but it's something that again, controversial topic, pumpkin spice. Again, so we're not gonna talk about that here, but just again,
Yeah,
food
we don't want
inspires a
to
lot of
ruffle
us.
any feathers with pumpkin
First,
spice.
very first podcast episode, and we're getting a bunch of hate mail, so we're not gonna do that. But yeah, no, I appreciate your again your perspective on this for sure, and I would say again, like tying into the habit thing, right? We've talked about morning routines and some good good habits that we've both created that we've done and kind of how we've accomplished that. Is there something, I guess, like it's kind of the maybe the same side of, or two sides of the same coin? Is there something that has been successful in stopping bad habits for you? I think it's like, again, I think it ties back to friction when I think about like watching too much TV. And I remember reading a book about this. I think Atomic Habits talks about it, by James Clear. It talks about taking the batteries out of a remote control and placing them somewhere where it's hard to reach, and basically forcing yourself to go find those batteries every time you want to watch TV. Or again, if you want to limit your time on social media, what you can do is not just set a timer on it, but rather before you open up an app, say, I'm going to go onto this app because of this reason, right? Like you kind of have to be deliberate about it. And I'm kind of curious, again, is there something that you do intentionally that prevents bad habits from forming?
Yeah. I do have something very specific, but touching on what you said really quick, I actually wrote an X post about this. I don't even know, maybe an hour or so ago. But
Perfect.
when you were talking about like unplugging,
Yeah.
um, kind of similar to the food thing, how we're bombarded with so much food, ready at consumption.
Yeah.
With media now, it's great because we have lots of creative people creating things that we can always enjoy ourselves, movies, TV, TikTok, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
But if you're really trying to work towards something that isn't really dictated for you, whether it's a page on a social media platform or a business, writing a book, whatever it is,
Hmm.
that takes your own ideas. So when we consume all this stuff, we're basically letting the outside world, implant thoughts into our heads. But that's not good when you're trying to create something. So the only way to really have your own ideas is to completely distance yourself from everything. So whether it's a dark shower, you go on a walk with headphones on that has like, static or something like that.
Yeah.
Now your brain is forced to create ideas. There are no other external sources that can give you ideas except for your own thoughts. So that is 100% key for whether you're trying to create new habits. It's like, okay, let's stop all these outside ideas. Let's
Oh
just
yeah.
reflect, on what I'm thinking. It's like, all right, I'm thinking this way. Is this beneficial to the habits I'm trying to either stop doing or, integrate into my daily routine? So
Hmm.
that's huge right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that's I mean, that's exactly something that I was looking for a response like that. So yeah, I'll make sure that I repost what you posted as well when we hop off here, because
Yeah.
that's super relevant to what we're talking about.
But yeah, in terms of like what I do, so
Hmm.
obviously with the mental reboot,
Hmm.
it has to do with the brain, and more specifically, really just kind of shining a light on how powerful our subconscious minds truly are.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've seen the image, with the iceberg, how there's the tip out of the water, and then the rest of the iceberg, like 90% of the iceberg's under the water. You know, that part under the water, that's your subconscious mind. And so many people don't understand how powerful it truly is in our cognition and just our
Hmm.
daily lives because we think consciously. We don't think with our subconscious mind, but your subconscious mind is the true driver in the vehicle of your mind. And if you're not in touch with, you know, telling that driver where to go, the world is telling your subconscious driver where to go, and you have nothing you can do about it for the most part. So basically what the mental reboot is for, is to teach people, one, okay, this exists, first of all, because many people don't know. Two, this is kind of how it works, without, giving them a full, research article on like every single part of the brain and why. But it's like, this is how it works in a general sense. But now how you can actually, talk to your driver and say, hey, I want to go here, because you can actually do that. So basically, I practice subconscious reprogramming. Some may call it manifestation. Some may refer to the law of attraction, positive affirmations. It's all basically the same thing. People like to attribute, manifestation with some kind of universal spiritual power, where you have to have a crystal. True manifestation is reminding yourself who you are, and basically telling yourself, the right things, not saying, okay, I'm lazy, but it's like, how is that productive? And if you keep saying that, well, you're going to believe it because you keep reinforcing it.
Absolutely.
Or if someone tells you you're lazy and you're like, yeah, I'm lazy. But it's like, no, I'm not lazy. Or if you think you're lazy, you're like, okay, I'm lazy. Why do I think I'm lazy? Well, I'm lazy because I don't like doing these things. Well, why do I not like doing these things?
Yeah. Should
I be doing these things? Should I not be doing these things? And you could basically funnel back to, oh, there's no reason why I'm lazy. And it's like, once you can peel back that onion, you can now insert kind of a new seed, and then you can keep tending to that seed until now, oh, I'm not lazy, I'm very productive. But it's because you really will it into existence, but you can't just say it. You have to, reinforce the thoughts, believe them because it is the truth. There's no other option. But then you also have to take action on what you're, watering. Like, I mean, just as an example, you have to water the seed. You can't just say, all right, chuck it, maybe it'll grow. A bird's going to come by and eat it. You got to plant it, you got to water it, and you got to tend to it so it will grow, and it'll bear the fruit that you're hoping it will.
It's true. So true. I mean, that's spot on. You've totally just, so much of what you said resonates, and it reminded me of, and I think this is related. It's the RAS, and Tony Robbins has talked about it, right? The reticular activating synapse in our brains, where this happened to me actually about a year ago. I was thinking about getting a new vehicle, a Tesla, in fact. And I saw one on, I went looking online for a couple of, at some of the dealerships around me, and I found a specific, I think it was a silver Model 3 or something, right? And so I said, I'm going to maybe go in for a test drive in the next couple weeks to go test drive this Tesla. So for the next 2 weeks, before I even got around to test driving, as I was driving in and going to the office, driving home, commuting back and forth to work, I was noticing a ton more Teslas than normal, right? I mean, we're talking like five or six on the road during this short drive. And this is not a long drive at all. It's really short. And so I'm seeing different vehicles, different types of the same vehicle I was looking at online over the next 2 weeks, where I thought to myself, this whole city was full of Teslas, like every car, pretty much, like, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting one. And I was like, there aren't that many on the road here. Or if there are, I'm seeing more of them because my brain is more in tune with looking for them. Maybe they were on the road, right? And I just hadn't noticed them until I was dialed into it. So I think, can you speak to that at all? Have you done any research into that as well?
Yeah, no, that's a huge kind of example of the subconscious mind at work. It's like, whether you wanted it to be planted or not, seeds are being planted in your head. So it's very important to control which ones are being watered, because that's basically how advertising works in a general sense. It's like an advertiser, they're trying to plant the seed, and whatever channels that they have that are kind of helping that brand image kind of water that seed, it's your responsibility to be like, all right, I don't care for this product, or I do care for this product, but if you kind of just let it happen, then you're going to be marketed to things that you probably don't even need. But it's because you just keep seeing it, and your subconscious mind is like, all right, I see this, I recognize it, and potentially even associating positive things with it, maybe because of the thing you were doing when you saw it. So now it's like when you're going to make a decision between Domino's and Pizza Hut, well, maybe most of the times that you were, seeing a Pizza Hut ad, you were with friends. So it's like you have that positive association with Pizza Hut, but maybe for a true subconscious fact that Domino's was better the last time you went, but you don't think about that. It was just an instinct. It's like I have this association with Pizza Hut, and there's no good reason why you ordered Pizza Hut.
It's fascinating. I mean, I could talk about this all day as well, because this is a topic that it's something that the more I learn about it, and again, you've taught me a lot already during just this last few weeks of us even interacting online. The more I realize that there's so much that I don't know about the way the brain works, and I'm grateful for what you've elaborated on up to this point, and even tonight, right during this podcast. I think there's a few nuggets of wisdom in there. What you just said about, again, make sure, like, know which seed is being watered, right? Make sure you're aware of that, and try to recognize when that's happening. And it's something that I think it takes that. Yeah, I think there's some level of intentionality, right? You need to have that kind of awareness and not let things kind of go on in the background, right? You have to be able to kind of be conscious of, again, I don't want to use a word that you just said, but like there's a difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and being aware of the fact that exists, that you said the iceberg analogy. It's critical to kind of being able to be able to pull yourself out of that nosedive of the advertising world that can kind of get you turned astray. Yeah, but I think it's awesome. And going back to the positive habit side of the house here for a moment, is there something in particular that you want to accomplish before the end of the year that could be assisted by better habits? And I'm talking about, it can be anything, right? Like for me, I wanted to lose another 5-10 pounds, right? But then I end up finding myself every year. It's like, well, is it muscle or is it fat, right? Like because I go to the gym. So it's something that for me, whenever I set some sort of a goal like that, I'm trying not to be too critical of myself, I guess, right? And be cognizant of the fact that there is a difference between that type of weight. So for me, yeah, I'm curious about you, and is there something that you can think of that would be kind of fall into that category of something that you want to accomplish, that better habit formation, or that you might be assisted by setting a positive habit?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you bring that up because, the main purpose, like I said, of my profile is to bring the light, understand why it's important and how you can use it. But what I'm really working on is I'm actually working on writing a book about this.
Awesome.
So this is kind of my first more public announcement, actually, of the book.
Love that.
You kind of get the special release. I technically replied today on a very small tweet or post, my bad. But, in terms of a more public sense, this is basically the announcement. So yeah, I'm going to be using these habits that I've currently been forming, and ones that I actually plan to implement to really create not just the book, but a book that is easy to read. It's informative. It's not confusing. And it's something that people are actually going to want to consider when they're just going about their day, but also not something that would negatively impact anyone. So kind of just treading the line of being super useful. Basically, the way I think about it is we were never handed a user manual when we, were born. But we have this computer in our heads. And, when you buy any other computer or piece of software, I mean, what usually comes along with it? Instructions.
User manual, yeah.
But we're not given that for our brain. So I'm really designing this to be that user manual that I wish I was handed when I received my, computer brain. That's basically the goal of this.
Yeah, I appreciate you announcing this. This is fantastic news. And I'll definitely obtain a copy of it when, hopefully an autographed copy when you get this published, my friend. And I'd love that. Yeah, it's awesome news. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that, whatever versions come out, you'll be getting one for free for sure.
Awesome. Wow. Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I was going to say that, when it comes to that sort of thing, like it's all about the the actionable insights for me, right? When I think of books about, to me, it's like, is there something that I can take away in these self-help or personal development books, right? And I read a ton of them. You should see my bookshelf
Yeah.
in the other part of this house here. But I'm telling you, I have like, you name every popular self-help or personal development author, and I probably have at least one book from them. Like, it's just, this collection's massive. And anyone who's been popular in the past 5 to 10 years, I at least have one, maybe even multiple books from that author. So I really like to dive deep into this type of conversation. And what I find is that I always struggle with these books, right? I buy them, but then I think, could this have been, could this have been something else, right? Like, could it be shrunk down into like a 30 or 40 page ebook, right? It could be like, there needs to be some sort of level of actionable insight. Like, is there something that I can do, right? That really, that can get me, miles ahead of where I was previously. Is there something, right? And again, I'm not saying give me the shortcut. I'm just saying, is there something that I can do to kind of get started? And I'm pretty sure that, knowing you and knowing all the substance behind what you're bringing to this platform and to everything that you do so far, I'm confident that you're going to have some actionable information in that book.
Yeah, and that's like, it's funny you said the 30 to 40 page thing, because it's like, that's my goal with this is, I don't want it to be any longer than like 50 pages, including
Yeah.
resources, because I want it
Correct.
to be something that if someone wants to, because the main driver of subconscious reprogramming is repetition.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to read this every week, every few days, I want them to be able to do that, so they can actually, because sometimes it takes, before you actually subconscious reprogram, you kind of need to create the program that it actually is a real thing. Like, you
Yeah.
need to first grasp that it actually works. And I had to go through that. Funny backstory, I kind of did it by mistake.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated in psychology, but I never really focused on, the idea of subconscious mind at all. I kind of just liked all of it, understanding like different little things on why we do this, why we do that. I took psychology in high school, all that good stuff. And then, maybe it was like 3 years ago, I was like really adamant about what I wanted to do in a certain aspect of my life. And I would kind of say it out loud, say it to myself over and over again. And then about 6 months passed and I was like, wait a minute. I think completely different now. And I had seen a couple different videos, read a few things where people were talking about this and how it works. I'm like, oh, wow, this really works. So now I kind of leaned into it and did it intentionally. And I've seen it continue to work.
Yeah.
So I kind of stumbled into it. So it's definitely important to understand that it works first, so then you can really use it. So yeah, 50 pages or less, so people can really just
Awesome.
reread it. Because it's like, so many people, when they read some of these books, they're like 500 pages and they want to read it like 3 times. But it's
Yeah.
like, that's time consuming, especially if you want to read new books.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the thoughtfulness that you bring to the table, my friend, is not lost on me. I recognize, the intentionality and the focus and the discipline that you bring, and it's something that's refreshing, quite frankly. And again, I'm super grateful that you've, been here on this podcast, the inaugural, the initial podcast, Ignite That Light, episode 1. You've we're not wrapping up yet, but I just wanted to get that out there that you're definitely a breath of fresh air in the social media world and beyond. So again, keep up the good work, and don't let anybody tell you that you make a 500-page book, because that's not necessary.
Yeah, no, I
So,
really appreciate that, especially
yeah.
just the fact that you wanted to have me as the first guest, having, sub 50 followers on X, as,
Yeah.
as this podcast started.
Yeah.
Um, but I have a message, and it felt like the time to get it out there, because it's just been really important to me. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, over the past 5 years, especially through the pandemic and all that, excitement, I've gone through some of my highest highs, some of my lowest lows.
Oh yeah.
And this is something that really just began to develop in terms of my understanding and actually in use. And I want to be able to share this with people who have no idea it exists.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. And again, I thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, we've been through some rocky times. I think all of us, right? All of us are struggling, and I firmly believe that. And we've been struggling for years, right? And the pandemic, I think, it provided opportunities for a lot of people, but it also, I think it also made things a little more difficult for a lot of people. And so it's, again, I know people that have been struggling with just friendships, right? Just general friendships, right? I think you go into like I'm not going too far on a tangent here, but as you think about like your high school and college years and the friendships that you build and the close friends that you have, and then you kind of get into your 30s and 40s, and then those friendships sort of get reduced, right? There's really close friendships I'm talking about. They get reduced, and then you're in your 50s and you're like, man, I have like maybe one or no close friends. Like nobody really wants that at the end of the day. I don't think, like, really, I think the way that humans are hardwired, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't done all the research on it, but from what I've read, we are a social creature, right? Humans are social, and because of that, I think the ability to connect, and that's the beauty. I think if you're thinking about the positives of social media, right, is that we can connect beyond. We can connect in ways that we didn't without it, right? And so, we think about how friendships were made back in the early 1900s, right? It's different. 100 years beyond that, 1920s, 1923, right, compared to 2023, it's just different. And so it's worlds different. And again, I'm grateful for your time here and being able to again announce your book. I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm excited to write it. I'm definitely going to take the time, talk with professionals, all that good stuff to make sure that what I release, maybe it's, edition 1. Okay. I'm definitely not opposed to rewriting, but I at least want that first one to be, productive and not, insanely polarizing, other than the fact that most people don't, understand this is a thing, but I want it to be very effective, very simple, but also, it doesn't take people into a path that is not productive, which that's the complete opposite point of the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that you're gonna bring something to the world it's going to be a thoughtful read, I think. And again, your intentionality is going to pay off. So yeah, thanks for announcing that. And we're gonna again get closer to wrapping up here. We've been doing this for over 40 minutes, and then again, super grateful for your time tonight. Wanted to talk a little bit about, again, we talked about morning routines. Is there a certain bedtime routine, right? Is there a way that you close your day out? Is there a certain set of habits? Again, we've talked about this already, but kind of sticking with the theme, is there something that you do, whether, again, I know people that, for example, blue light glasses, blue blockers. I tried that for a year or two during the pandemic. Didn't really, I mean, it sort of worked, I felt like, but I don't know if that was the placebo effect or what. I'm kind of curious what you do before bed to kind of get yourself ready to kind of conk out for the evening.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of would push the limits in terms of how late I would stay up, especially if I'm working on something.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times I would just be so tired that I just, conk out no matter what and stay asleep, which obviously isn't the most healthy. You're supposed to be able to kind of be laying there trying to sleep for about 15 minutes. That means that you aren't sleep deprived. Yeah, I can't really say that I've been in that boat. But as we speak, I'm currently trying to really dial that in so I can actually, have that 15-minute waiting period. But in terms of before I go to sleep, if I have a lot of energy, I actually sometimes will do like a reduced workout, just like simple stuff, like with my body weight, whether I'm doing core or whatever, just some simple dumbbell stuff, band stuff, just to kind of get rid of any extra energy I might have, take a dark shower just to kind of get myself ready to go to sleep. And then that usually does the trick for sure.
That's
Nothing
awesome.
too crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I think that seems like that would work, right? Kind of get, we have those, what do they call those? The blackout curtains, right? We have those in our bedroom, and that makes a difference to kind of get the room dark. And for me, I don't know if anyone else suffers from this, but if there's any type of light that creeps into the bedroom at night, for whatever reason, it kind of translates into my brain as like it's nightmare fuel. So like for whatever reason, if there's like light peeking in through the window, I'll wake up like an hour after I fall asleep with this like crazy nightmare because of just this like flash of light coming from the windows. Like it's crazy. Again, you can probably tell me more about why that happens. But for me, I think that's the room has to be completely dark or else I can't fall asleep. So falling asleep with the TV on is a no-no in our house. It doesn't work.
Yeah. People are like completely different. And I think it definitely has to do with probably how sleep deprived or how not sleep deprived you are. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
for me, I could pretty much sleep through anything unless someone, punches me in the face. But for others, it might be as simple as, hey, you're a healthy sleeper. So
Yeah.
if something is disrupting your environment, you're going to wake up. But also people are just completely different. Sleep's a whole nother beast. It's really fascinating. Oh, there you are.
There you are. Oh yeah, still didn't want to lose you.
But yeah, sleep is really fascinating. There's a lot of different kind of studies behind it about so many different aspects of it. There's a lot of it that they actually don't understand still, which is pretty cool because they keep coming out with new studies and discoveries. But yeah, I'm not super big in terms of studying the sleep stuff.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good sign that you wake up easily. Might not be, but but yeah.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Yeah. Again, I'm learning as I go, right, as we all do. But yeah, yeah, I think that's been that's again, you just given me a lot to think about, and hopefully everyone here has had a chance to digest some of this. And last but not least, I do want to know what inspires you. Kind of going back to the theme of this podcast, right? Ignite that light. What's give me a few examples of what inspires you, right? I think it's something. It can be anything, right? Don't feel like you have to go too deep into this, but kind of curious, what are some things that and motivate, inspire you to kind of, again, get yourself out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, this is actually pretty huge for me because it's really changed in like the past, like I said, about 5 years. But
Hmm.
the main thing is really seeing the creativity of the people in our world, especially on X.
Yeah.
The world in its current state, it funnels us to convergent thinking, especially through traditional schooling systems. I mean, take the same classes,
Yeah.
maybe join some clubs, join a team, whatever. It funnels you to pretty much thinking the same way, which is effective in terms of keeping people, controlled.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to have everybody pretty much learning the same stuff, but the world has all of the cool things in it because of those few divergent thinkers per million. And we only need those few to have, the iPhone, electricity. We don't need everyone to be divergent thinkers, but understanding that anyone can become one really inspires me to be one and then use that power to accomplish things that can help the rest of us. It really reminds me that any of us can do it if one, we know it's a thing, which we can see it's a thing looking at Steve Jobs and all these minds that have
Yeah.
existed. We just have to put our minds to it and just be consistent, as people love to talk about on X, but it's true. See the light, be consistent at moving towards the light, and take that first step, but keep walking.
It's beautifully said, my friend. Beautifully said. I couldn't say it any better than that. I think that's just, yeah, powerful. And I hope people take a listen to this and say, you know what, that's that's something to reflect on, right? I think the divergent thinkers concept. I think that's I don't know that people necessarily think about it other than on a surface level. But if you really, really dive deep into that, yeah, the Steve Jobses of the world, I think, you aspiring to be one of those, divergent thinkers is, it's just powerful. And I'm grateful for your explanation and your willingness to hop on here and be the guinea pig for episode 1 of Ignite That Light. I appreciate
Yep.
it, my friend.
Hopefully I don't wake up with a third leg. But other than that, I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too, my friend. I think this is it's been great. I enjoyed it, and I do want you to, before you wrap up, I would like for you to also shout yourself out. Let people know where they can find you. Maybe give them a hint at what the title of that book's going to be. Anything you want. I want to give you the floor for the next few minutes, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, just quick shout out, just like it says up there, at the Mental Reboot on X, technically Threads and Instagram, mainly on X. As of right now, I'm just obviously recycling content onto Instagram and Threads to basically just pull more people to the X platforms. That's where I like my home being. And in terms of the book, I'm not specifically going to release the title yet. I'll wait on that, for future months to come. But I would like to close on kind of the habits topic, and also tying into kind of the specialty of my account. So I think one of the best habits to kind of develop is not caring what anyone has to say about you. I think it's most important to understand what your morals are, why you want to stick to them, and knowing that you're doing your best to stick to them. If someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, you're lazy," you'd be like, "Cool." But to yourself, you're like, "I'm not lazy. This person has no idea who I am." Because ultimately, only you know yourself, truly know yourself. So no one else can actually comment on who you are unless they really know, who you are. And most people won't. And it's huge because for most people, with norms, and it's like, oh, you got to wear this to be cool, to fit in. You got to be part of this club. If you don't do this, this, and this, you're not going to make it in life. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And people could tell you 20 million reasons why it matters, but it doesn't. The only thing that matters is what you think of yourself. I think that's one of the best habits you can form, because we're so worried about what everyone else thinks when it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautifully said. I think that's, I mean, I need to take some of that advice. Just not something that I'm good at, but yeah, that's super, super important and valuable, I think, to a lot of us. And, or at least I'll speak for myself. I can probably use some of that in my day to day. I'm not bringing I'm not bringing negativity to this podcast, but I do think that you're spot on. I think it's I saw something earlier today that said, it's not like, what's the exact phrase? It was something along the lines of, I should be the way that I am and not care about how people think about me, because the right people will flock to me. Something to that effect, right? It's like you don't need to worry about what other people or how they perceive you, because if you're doing the right thing, the right people will come to you. Something to that effect. And I think that there's some sort of validity to that, right? I think if you're doing what you believe is true and right, and that you think is the right thing to do, I think that you will naturally attract the right people for you. So yeah, I think that's powerful, and I appreciate you landing on that. I think that's again, you said it perfectly, and I couldn't say it any better.
No, that was an awesome addition too. It's perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time tonight, and I will wrap there. I think we want to again shout out the Mental Reboot for being my very first official guest here on this podcast, and Ignite That Light will go on and tell your friends, tell your family, and tell them to follow the Mental Reboot if they don't already. And yeah, tell them this podcast exists, and try to get it out there to the other platforms, to the YouTubes of the world, to the other streaming services here soon. So be on the lookout, and we will talk to you guys again next week.
Thanks again, Chris. This was awesome.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.